came in for the light. A small single bulb of light. A floor lamp. An empty stage. It's an end of night procedure. When everyone's leaving the theatre, the house manager usually shouts, "Joe, have you put the ghost light on?" Even when it's dark, it isn't usually an actor doing it. Switching the ghost light on. But actors do turn their hands to all kinds of things. I'm not exactly busy at the moment. I've done all sorts. Flexible jobs. The kind of jobs where if you get a role in the theatre, they let you take time off. Or you might have to leave. We get used to dodging and diving. Rearranging our lives. Worked as a barman, a barista, Just Eat delivery driver. Worked in the Asda warehouse. Worked in McDonald's all night. Gardener, cleaner, babysitter, receptionist, and the bookie's assistant. But I am an actor. We keep our identities long after any evidence is waned. We are some of the most adaptable people in the workforce. I don't mean the really famous ones. They don't have to be. I can't imagine Eddie Redmayne as his way around the Asda warehouse, for example. Just Eat deliveries are probably a bit beneath Helena Bonham Carter. And I bet you Daniel Craig doesn't know when it's best to plant your hardy perennials. But most jobbing actors, proper adaptable. I'm alright with it, man. Easy going. That's why I took that job on from outer space. I know what you're thinking. Boy, he's a right number, he is, that Joe. Yeah, I'd said the same myself, like, but just bear with us and I'll tell you what happened, right? Because it's proper mint. 8 million light years away from Earth. 60% larger than Earth itself, so we're one small globe in comparison. We call it Kepler 452b. They call it. We discovered Kepler 452b in 2015. They discovered Earth 500 years ago. They approached us. Here, in this theatre. 1 minute, I'm switching the ghost light on. The next minute, I'm surrounded by these shadowy creatures with muted green costumes and dark grey shoes. I thought to myself for a minute, I didn't think the youth theatre were in tonight. And then I realised, these weren't bands. Ghosts? Well, there's plenty of superstitions about ghosts in theatres. Probably because there were so many people so vividly alive in theatre. You know, like brilliant actors whose presence would send shivers down you. And they come back to haunt theatres because we can't believe they're gone. When really, they are. Them some canny shoes, I said. And I'm so erudite. And suddenly, there was a sound, like a whooshing of water, and more of them appeared. 6 or 7, it was hard to tell in that light. I was taken back for a minute. Although, they didn't seem threatening. And I work in some tough neighbourhoods, I can tell you. And then they gathered around us, like an audience sat in these front seats. They are on a fact-finding mission. Well, they call it not a fact-finding mission, but a cha-ching mission. It took me a while to get the gist of it now. There are super intelligent beings, but they're convinced, although they're a hyper-efficient species, some crucial life force has become lost or missing within their evolutionary state. They've got a lot in common with us. They offered us a decent whack and I agreed to be their tour guide. One of their ancestors had visited Earth during the Elizabethan era and had met William Shakespeare, they said. This ancestor had left a tome of Shakespeare's plays in the Globe Theatre, but none of it was taken seriously at the time. But recent events have led them to reconsider. I says to them, I'm surprised you've heard of William Shakespeare at all, Paul, eh? Now that is fame. I've never been that asked about space. You know, some lads were into astronauts and the moon landing. I mean, didn't get us wrong. I love DT and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but this is not like that. I laughed at first and I says, why would you ask me? I'm an out-of-work actor and most theatres are closed. I'm also a Geordie. I know we're as good as anybody else, like. But if your top aliens are on Earth and they've met William Shakespeare, you think they'd want to talk to Judi Dench or Ian McKellen? But to be honest, I reckon that if they turned up here to Assembly Rooms Theatre in the North East, chances are pretty likely they expected to find a Geordie. It's a long way to come, I says. I've got pals who've never left the toon. That's a Geordie thing. We're pretty happy here on the whole. And then they said a weird thing. We are becoming dim. Dim, I says. Do you not mean very bright? Lacking light. Well, to be honest, it did look a bit drab-like. You mean like this? Ta-da! One small globe of light. This is a ghost light. What does it mean? Why, safety for one thing, but it has other meanings to people in theatre as well. Traditionally, it's a light that's kept burning after hours to celebrate the enduring nature of theatre. You know, our theatres, posh ones in London like the National or the Globe, to small ones like Holtruck and Hull and Alphabeti and Newcastle. Some say it comes from the days of gaslit theatres, where there was a small gas light used to relieve the pressure on gas valves. Or other stories of ghosts of old actors or people who used to work in the building and the light was used to keep them away at night so they didn't get mischievous. Or to give them a light so they could dance and perform across the stage again. It's also known as the equity lamp, which would make you think it's an official ruling of the British Actors Equity Association. But anyone seems to have such knowledge. But the practical use does make sense, like. And then the last people out of the theatre and the first people in won't fall in the orchestra pit in the dark. Or in this case, walk into the front of the stage and smack his leg. These days people get litigious, so there's that too. There's a lot to a ghost light. Lights are a big part of theatre, I explained to them, in how the audience take their seats and wait for the house lights to go down and the show to start. Stage lights go up and illuminate the show, maybe it's a spotlight for the star. Then the house lights come up again at the end to let them know that the play's over. Theatre's had pause for a bit recently. We say theatres have gone dark, but due to the ghost light, none of them really are. I could get you one. I've got a mate who works at Light Fantastic. He's an actor, actually. I could get you a good price. This is what happened on Bar. What? Actors selling you stuff cheap from Light Fantastic? We knew the price of everything. Why? It's not the light that's valuable, per se. It's the meaning. You see, actors like me don't make a lot of money. If you want to be rich and come from where I come from, the acting profession isn't your best bet. Best I can hope for is to make enough money to pay me rent and have something to eat. Why be an actor then? It takes a certain kind of lunacy. When you're rehearsing for a play, there's moments of such wonder that just make your heart sing. Now those other jobs that I do just seem insignificant, just a means to an end. Way to pay the price of food. And people come and sit in all these seats. In theatre, there's moments of insight or magic that the memory stays with you forever. Theatre to me is a necessity to life. The advantages of working for them is that they have incredible technology. What you need is to be able to see it. Are we able to travel in time? So we went to the theatre. We saw Twelfth Night in Stratford-upon-Avon, Rutherford and Sons at the Theatre Royal in York, Dancing in Lunacy, All My Sons at the National, Follies, Our Town, Close the Coalhouse Doors, Antigone in ancient Greece, West Side Story in Broadway, Three Sisters in Moscow, just everything you can imagine. And then they began to murmur to one another. You know, like a humming of bees. A nice song. Almost musical. I'll tell you something about human beings. If a woman is walking down an empty street and sees a man hit another woman, she might be furious, but she might walk on. Or she might challenge the man, tell him to stop, and the man might turn on her and hit her as well. If the same woman sees the same scene but on a busy street, she's no longer at the scene in the same way. She's changed by being with other people. She might challenge the man and be supported by these other people who help her and the woman and then pour shame on the man. And so it is in the theatre. When we gather together as an audience, we see what's on stage, not just with our own eyes, but how others see it. They asked me one last question. What value does our world place on theatre? Well, I've got to be honest. I tell them the truth. Theatre is a controversial subject frequently debated. Humans more or less agree we need food, shelter, care, love, medical care. But theatre, I tell them this. A playwright called Arthur Miller once did a talk on theatre. At the end of this talk, a man comes up to him and says, I'm a shoemaker. If my shoes don't sell, I go out of business. If theatre gives the public what it wants, why should my taxes pay to support it? A hard question. After a moment, Miller replies, I see your point, but can you name one Elizabethan shoemaker? And I swear to God, right, as I told them this, they began to glow. Unless they had some sort of luminescence in their costumes, like. Then the house manager calls through. Joe, have you put the ghost light on? Aye. It's on.